This is nervous, man, because it's a different thing. It's like first time all over again, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm just going to go for it.
So first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror, which paralyzes needed efforts to convert retreat into advance. We face our common difficulties. They concern, thank God, only material things.
The defense with Aaron Lipscomb!
Hi, everybody. My name is Aaron, and my bodacious sidekick here is Zach. We're from a website known as revivalhouse.net. Some of you might be aware of our other podcasts that we do. We do film commentaries, usually entertainment related. But I had a bit of an epiphany here lately. We want to try something new. Basically, when we're doing these podcasts like we normally do, Zach and I and Riverman and the people that are a part of those, we're a little confined. There's sometimes we feel like we can't talk about anything because we live in a bit of a PC world. And it just felt really liberating at the idea of having something that, we don't have to be afraid to discuss whatever we're feeling. And I felt like in recent times on those podcasts, some of these sort of topics were seeping their way into the more fun, fair type of discussion, because I think it means that I've been wanting to talk about this stuff and it hasn't really had a home. And this is really hard for me. I'm going to be totally honest, because in my personal cliques and even people that listen to the other podcasts that we put on, I'm sort of notorious for being very private. Mm-hmm. Very private. And it's very tough for me to be this transparent. But that's what's so alluring about this idea, to have a podcast where we're not afraid to be transparent. And I'll be honest. So you guys are going to have to bear with me a little bit, because like I said, this is like learning to walk all over again for me. I can tell you stupid stories all day long about my past, funny stories, silly stuff, talk about entertainment, talk about stupid knowledge that's not really going to make us any money, right? But when you put me in a corner and you say, hey, let's crack open the shell and tell us about your deepest, darkest, or what, then it's like I kind of go into the fetal position all over again. Like, what do I do? It's like, I don't know what to do. So bear with me a little bit if I'm a little shaky, because it's tough, because I've acknowledged that myself, me being a very private person, if I sit there and open this up and I post it, well, I am forfeiting that privacy. There's no going back, right?
Yeah.
So that's scary, but it's also, like I said, it's alluring. It's attractive in a certain way, because I'll be honest again. This all came about a couple of nights ago, because that's what this podcast is going to be about. It's all about honesty, transparency. A couple of nights ago, we were recording one of our normal commentaries, and after we were done recording, and it was a fun time, hilarity about, we got real. Like after we were done recording, myself, Zach here, and Riverman, who's not here, we all started talking about very serious stuff, because like I said, we've started kind of talking about that stuff's been sneaking its way in because it's been on my radar, and I kind of got a little naked for a second there. And like I said, it's very hard to talk about, but talking about depression. And I don't really remember where it started. I don't. Oh, you know what? I think I do. We were talking about a mutual friend, right? Mm-hmm. We were talking about a mutual friend, just kind of like side commenting on some certain things that, somebody may or may not be going through. And I started sharing what I've been going through. And in that day, and actually the last few days, I've been experiencing it pretty hard, but depression. It's like feeling... I don't know what you think is depression. That's the problem with stuff like that, is you don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. It's a taboo concept, right? Mm-hmm. You never know what constitutes depression clinically until, I mean, obviously you have these famous people that kill themselves and it's horrible. And that's when people are all like, oh, it was right underneath our noses the whole time.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, but I don't know. It's crazy because when you're feeling sad, you do question, is what I feel normal?
Yeah.
Does everybody else feel like this? I can't speak up because what if everybody doesn't feel like this? And, you know, I'll be targeted for certain types of discussion. It makes you very uncomfortable and you question yourself. Well, what is depression? Am I just sad? Maybe I'm just sad. Maybe that's all it is. But you're like, well, I don't really have a reason for my sadness, or if there's certain emotional triggers, maybe they're subconscious. And you doubt it. But for some reason or another, this topic and a lot of different topics are taboo. And then I was in a bad way. I really was. And I go through this, you know, it's not just an isolated incident, but you know, you wake up and there's some trigger. I think sometimes we know subconsciously, we know what the trigger is. And I think sometimes we don't really realize what it is, but I think there usually is some sort of a trigger. But like I said, I'm not a professional. I'm not pretending to be. But you wake up and your brain just tells you different things. Your brain just sends you these mixed signals that don't make any sense. You know, and I was watching, you know, Zach, when they had, like recently they had Chris Cornell who killed himself, and they had the Lincoln Park guy, Chester Bennington, kill himself, you know, and these things happen. Mm-hmm. I know that a lot of people take it lightly. Like, so somebody like Chester Bennington kills himself and then social media comments light up. And a lot of people making distasteful jokes, looking for like 5 seconds of laughter from somebody, right? They're seeking validation somewhere. But honestly, when I see that stuff, it really messes with me. Mm-hmm. Because it makes it really real for a second. Because I mean, I'm not saying that they're any different than anybody else that suffers through that, but it makes it really real and puts a spotlight on it when there's somebody that's, you know, has a lot of money and a lot of success, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, wow, it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was watching, you kind of go down that rabbit hole, and then like everybody, like, you know, Chester Bennington or whatever kills himself. Everybody starts Googling him, watching all YouTube videos. Everybody tries to play psychotherapist, you know, let me watch these old interviews and let me see if I can spot it, you know? And I did it too. And I watched this, I think it was labeled as his last interview or one of his last interviews, where he was talking about how he felt. And man, I got to be honest with you, it resonated with me. Like, I get it. And I'm not saying that I am on that level or, you know, it's as bad as his. I don't know. That's the thing. He was talking about, you know, his mind. It's like, it's hard for people to understand. His mind gives him mixed signals. It's like you wake up and your mind tells you that you're horrible. You're a burden. You know, nobody loves you. You feel all these things that don't make any sense at all. Like, I was feeling like that, and I get like that. I feel self-loathsome. You know, I hate myself. I feel extremely lonely. Like, it's one of those things where you could be lonely in a packed room, right? Mm-hmm. But you feel so lonely, and you feel like you can't do anything right, and you feel like you feel like you're a burden on everybody, and it would be better. You'd be doing everybody a favor if you were gone. And the thing is like, you know, that's bullshit. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, you have a lot of people have a parent or a mother or somebody that would be sad if they were gone, but you don't think about that in the time. It's so weird, but it's like me, like I said, it's a taboo thing. I don't know what's normal, like what's the normal amount of depression or what kind of thoughts are tolerable and what's to be concerned over. I have no idea because nobody wants to talk about it. But in my case, I don't know if you can relate, Zach, but I when I get like that, I mean, I do think about suicide.
Mm-hmm. I think that's where it kind of like, if you're not sure if you're just sad or if you have depression, I think that's kind of where that's a telling sign, is like, if you think about suicide, you know, you really consider it.
But see, and this is where I think like maybe I'm not to that point. I don't want to take drugs. I don't want to do all that stuff. I don't want people to shove shit down my throat. I don't want to just go to that stuff unless it was like totally necessary. And I'm not trying to say, because I'm not like it every day, but it does pop up occasionally, on occasion. And it feels like it's happening a little bit more in recent years. But, and I'm not at the point where, for example, the only reason I'm talking about this is, you know, like I said, I maybe people can relate, but, I'm not, I would never get to the point where I would actually do it. Not right, you know.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like I'm actually, you know, stepping up to the ledge or, you know, buying the pills or whatever. But it's just, it's more like me laying in the dark and just thinking all these things, thinking about what it would be like, constantly thinking about, you know, what it would be like to not be here. How people would probably not even bat an eye, and yet my suffering would be done in that moment, you know? Mm-hmm. It's just like, it's like me trying to rationalize it and make sense of it.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't know if that's like the extreme version of it, but I will tell you this. I break down when I think the mere fact that I'm even thinking about it makes me so upset with myself. And that just kind of fuels it even more because I'm already in this like place of self-loathing. And then I think about myself like, and here I am thinking about not being here and giving up life. And then it makes me hate myself even more. Because it's like, how disgusting is that? This is how I feel when I'm in that moment. Because it's like, there's people that would kill to live that don't get to live, you know? I come from a lot of loss in my family. You know, I had a little sister that passed away when she was 3 years old.
Really?
Yeah. See, look, okay, everybody, this is how I don't talk about stuff. I record with Zach all the time. And he's already finding out new things about me. Yeah, I had a little sister, and she passed away when she was 3. She fought cancer for 3 months. She was diagnosed from diagnosis. You know, she was diagnosed, and then from diagnosis, she lasted 3 months. But she was born with Wilms tumor, and which, you know, I'm not a doctor. I don't really know. I don't know if Wilms tumor is just the term for the tumor that you're born with, or if it's actually like a special kind of tumor. I don't really know, but I think that's what they kind of give to babies that are born with it. Yeah. And yeah, she was 3 years old, and there was a tumor, and it was in her stomach. Like she, you know, early in her life, it just kind of looked like she had a belly. You know, it wasn't not really of any concern. Yeah, it didn't seem to be. But then it's like by the time she got 2.5 years old, something like that, it's like the growth, her stomach, it wasn't like a weird like bump. It was just her whole stomach. It just looked like she had a big stomach. And me, you know, I was somebody that visited my house, my family's house, you know, on occasion. So I didn't see her every day. So when I showed up, I could really tell the difference, right? Because I remembered the last time I saw her, and there had been like a gap of time in between, correct? Yeah. So, and there was a point where I went over when she was, you know, she was 2. Because I remember she had her 3rd birthday in the children's hospital. So she was 2 when she got diagnosed. I went over, and I would go over on a weekly basis, but I remember at this particular time, I had gone almost a month for whatever reason that was going on. I hadn't been out there as much as I'd like to have been. And I came over and I saw her, and her stomach was really big, but the rest of her body was really skinny. Like her arms had no meat on them. Her face was skinny because, you know, she used to be chubby all around, but she was getting older. And I'm like, this isn't right. Like, this does not look right. And, you know, I tried telling my mother, because I think as parents, you don't want to think bad things about your kids, right? Yeah. And so maybe it was harder for them to see it because, you know, I had been pointing that stuff out for a while. Like, you might want to get that checked. I don't think that, you know, like this doesn't look normal, you know. And of course, naturally, they're going to think, well, she likes to eat. Well, she eats well. You know, she's good. Like, okay.
So it wasn't discovered right when she was born?
No way. But like I had noticed some things like along the way, like her stomach, like, cause it wasn't like her stomach was firm. It was kind of firm. And like I said, they're just, oh, you know, she likes to eat. Everything's fine. Because she was normal. She was fine. But like I said, man, when she was like too late in her late second year, and I had been gone for a month, I came over and that belly of hers was, you know, protruding even more. But now whatever the cancer inside her was taking her nutrients and she was skinny. Like this wasn't fat. This was the cancer.
Yeah.
Because she was just malnourished. And I got over there and I'm like, okay, just take her to a doctor. This is not normal. Like, let's take the blinders off. And I remember, you know, my mom, as soon as I said it that time, my mom broke down because she had kind of realized too.
Yeah.
That there was something wrong. And, yeah, and I don't know what it was about that moment that made people finally kind of realize, but they took her and yeah, she was diagnosed right then and there, and literally it happened so fast. They were rushing her to the children's hospital in like Kansas City, and literally they flew her, they airlifted her, and it just happened so fast. It's like 1 second, you know, you're eating corn on the cob at home. You take it to the doctor and like, whoa, we got to airlift her over here. She's in a bad way. It just happened so fast. But anyway, you know, she fought it for 3 months, and it's so weird when it's like a kid because they barely know about life, let alone death.
Mm-hmm.
You know, being that old. She had her third birthday in the children's hospital. Like, I don't know about you, but you're lucky. Like the third or fourth birthday of your life is the first one we remember typically, right?
Yeah.
So like that's like the first birthday she would have remembered. But like I said, she didn't really know any better, right? She was so young. And when you're 3, you're starting to really kind of formulate, you know, words and kind of come into your own. She had made her first friends in a children's hospital.
Yeah.
In a children's with other kids that were suffering. And I don't know. And I'll never forget how tough it was. And God bless my mom because she lived with her in that children's hospital for the entire 3 months.
Yeah.
In a different city. She didn't leave her side. And you know what? God bless my father even more because he still had to put bread on the table. I come from a very large family. 1 of 10.
Really?
Yeah. So you didn't even know that either? Jeez. Okay. So I'm the second oldest of 10. So I'm quite a bit older. Like I'm 20 years older than my sister that passed away would have been. Right. So there's quite a big gap. So I didn't live at home or anything. But, you know, like I said, God bless my dad even more, too, because he had to still put bread on the table and he worked. He couldn't like live with her. He couldn't spend every moment with her. He had to sit there and work his job to feed the other kids and to pay the rent. And every day he had off, he was driving up, you know, 4 hours on his days off to be there with her. Like he was running on empty fumes. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So basically where I'm trying to tie that around is I remember when she died and I remember when they sent her home. They sent her home and they said, look, eventually like, she's only got a week to live, we'd predict. So just send her home and enjoy, you know, time with her. And she doesn't have to be hooked up to a bunch of stuff. And, you know, cause she had like her tube, she called, you know, like the tube they had stick in your chest, you know, for the chemo, they keep it there.
Yeah.
And she was so innocent. Like I said, she didn't know any better. I mean, I don't know if she realized that the situation she was in was unique, or I don't know if she didn't think it was maybe to her, she thought everybody did that when they were 3 years old, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I know that she grew up super fast, just like in the 3 months dealing with that. She was super smart, super witty, very adult. And she called her tubes in her chest, her tubies. Right.
Yeah.
My tubies. Yeah. It was adorable and sad. And, you know, they'd have to flush out her tubies. It became part of her day. Like, okay, flush out my tubies. And it was just sad that had to be part of her day, that had to be the norm for her. And, you know, like I said, when they sent her home and they said, hey, you only have a week to live. That was depressing. I witnessed firsthand somebody that, like I said, barely knew about life, certainly didn't know anything about death. No 3-year-old thinks about death. So it makes me feel way worse when I'm even thinking about the hypotheticals of not being on this earth, right?
Mhm.
It's like, how insulting is that? Because like my little sister, for example, and all the kids that I saw in that hospital, they would have given anything, you know. What's even worse is like there was a child that she befriended in that hospital that was older. She was like 12 or 13. Man, what a messed up age to have that going on. Because now you do know better.
Yeah.
Right? You're too young to really know what life is completely, but you're old enough to know what death is. And this poor girl, they had her on, you have to put them on meds because they get so depressed of their situation. They get really depressed and because they know what looms. And it's just such a dark place, man. I can't believe my mother was able to stay there for as long as she did. I mean, it just wears on your spirit. So, but yeah, like I said, it was pure innocence and I watched it. I watched somebody purely innocent that didn't know her situation, that didn't know about death, that was going through this. And we all had to be quiet. We all had to just keep our chins up and treat everything normal and be happy and play with her. Nobody talked about the D word around her, and it's just, when they sent her home, it was rough. And this is, we're going to kind of transition to something else that plagued me for a little bit. But when they sent her home, I did something insanely selfish that I still hate myself for. But I was so exhausted by that time emotionally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's an emotional roller coaster. Because you got to think about it. My mom, I'm not saying my mom was the strongest. I mean, but she was, of course, breaking down over it all, right? Of course she is. That's her baby. And my dad, too. My dad was trying to be the tough guy, trying to stand for. But like me, I felt like I had to not break down. I felt like I had to be strong. And you have to be normal as you can be, right?
Yeah.
And I feel bad because I'm saying I was exhausted, but it's like my mom put in more time. My mom was like at the hospital every day. She was mentally exhausted. My dad was physically exhausted and mentally exhausted. And me though, I think my thing was during this whole time, I had nobody to talk to about it.
Yeah.
Because think about it. It's kind of a family matter. So you don't talk about, and I don't want to talk. The only people that really know about it is your family, and you don't want to talk about it with your family because I don't want to talk about it with my mom because I don't want her to break down. She's trying to be tough, right?
Yeah.
So you don't go there. I don't want to talk to my dad about it because it's the same thing. So I just sort of pretended it wasn't happening for like 3 months, and that was just it's kind of the reason why we're doing this whole podcast. It's like when you sit on these things, it's not necessarily healthy.
Yeah.
And anyway, when it came down to her coming home for the last week, and they're like, "Hey, enjoy every second," she's done. I couldn't deal with it. I stayed home. I didn't go. I should have stayed every day that last week or whatever it was, and just hung and spent time with her, right? Because, but I couldn't do it. And I remember I sat there in my apartment, and I even acknowledged it. I'm like, I'm gonna regret this. But the other part of my brain was like trying to block that out, be like, I'm tired, and I just didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to go there and really like meet it head on that, wow, she's going to die. And sure enough, I didn't spend any time with her that whole week. And then the call came that she passed away in my mother's arms. She did. She passed away in my mother's arms at her house. My mom describes it very well. She says she was just sitting on her sofa talking to my grandmother, who we all call Grammy, and my sister called Gammy, right? She can't pronounce it that well. And she was just holding her in her arms on the couch talking to Gammy. And all of a sudden, my little sister, my mom says she kind of started hallucinating, which they say that's what you do right before you die.
Yeah.
You start kind of hallucinating. And she just started kind of pointing in the living room or something like, "Mommy, do you see the frogs?" She loved frogs. That was her thing. She loved stuffed frogs. They were just so cute to her, and butterflies. And she was just pointing out these frogs that no one else could see. Like, what? And then she turned over And then, because my mom was talking to her Gammy, and the last thing she said was, "Mommy, can we go over to Gammy's house?" And then she died. And then, of course, the appropriate people were called. And then I was working with my dad at the time. And my dad got the call, and he just runs out of the back of the place. It was a restaurant, crying. I never saw my dad cry, by the way. And he was just telling me, you know, Meredith, that's her name, Meredith. Meredith's dead. And he was just rubbing his eyes, and he ran out the back door. Didn't wait for me or nothing. I just got in my car and I left. And my thing was, I was racing I was going about like 100 miles an hour because I instantly felt bad. Of course, once you get the news, you feel bad. Like, here it is. Here's the regret. Yeah. And I was going about 100 miles an hour because at that point, I just wanted to make it to my mom's house before they took her away. Because they send in the people to come take the body, and because I felt like I had to see her before I missed out on that. And I luckily did. You know, I got home and I saw my mom holding her, and yeah, I witnessed the whole thing, and it was rough, man. And like I said, and I felt horrible. And from that point on, I felt immense guilt for a whole year. I did. I felt terrible. I couldn't sleep at night because I felt so fucking selfish and horrible. Because here's where it's coming from. My little sister, when you're 3 years old, when you're that young, all you know about is your family. Yeah. She wasn't in school. She didn't make school friends. She didn't know about the world. She just knew her family. That was her world. Her mom, her dad, her brothers, her sisters. That's it. So the only thing that she could have ever wanted was to spend time with her brothers and sisters and her family. And I rejected that. Not even thinking about that in the moment. I don't think that's how I was thinking about it at the moment. That I was depriving her of probably the only thing that she could have wanted or known. But I did. I rejected it, and I didn't want to go. So I felt like a big pile of shit, basically, after the fact. And like I said, I dealt with it. But every black cloud has a silver lining, as they say. And I do think that good is birthed from bad. You know, they coexist. Yeah. And, you know, I feel like if we're strong enough to make it through a storm, you know, I feel like God always throws you a bone. If we could just make it through, there's always some kind of reward at the end, or whatever at the time that doesn't make sense. You know, you ask a lot of questions like, why? She didn't deserve to die. She was the most innocent out of all of us, and she was the sweetest, you know, kids love unconditionally out of all of us. Like, why did she get sick? You know, when there's, like, believe me, people in my family that have earned their punishments, you know, in certain ways. It's like, why her? So I've learned that whole situation taught me that even in times where it doesn't make a lick of sense, just have faith that it'll make sense later. And it did. It did make sense later because, well, for one, she taught me to be fearless because when she died, it helped me open my eyes. I was like, wow, life is precious. Why am I sitting on my butt? Because I was kind of at that moment in time where I didn't feel like I was progressing. You know, I had this grand epiphany. I was sitting in my apartment and I had gotten home from work, the same job I had worked for 4 years, to the same apartment I lived at for 4 years. And I sat down eating the same unhealthy, crappy meal I had eaten for 4 years. And then there was a moment I sat down. It was probably like a Hot Pocket or something. Which I don't eat that stuff anymore. I'm too old for that. But back then you didn't care about that stuff. And I was eating a Hot Pocket like a bachelor would. And I sat down, same couch. I turned on TV, and I think this is what the trigger was. It was the same episode of like Full House. Like I literally had this big deja vu moment. Like I've been here before. You know, yeah. watching the episode of Full House where Michelle falls off the horse and gets amnesia as I'm probably eating the exact same flavored Hot Pocket as another time. And, you know, it's like everything just clicked. And it's like, why am I afraid? What am I doing with my life? And I had social problems. I didn't like talking. I didn't like talking unless I was spoken to. I mean, I could talk, but I had to have reason. It was like that Clint Eastwood thing where, I don't talk much, but when I do, it's going to be important. And I certainly didn't like hugging people, touching people, people invading my bubble. And I felt like that was a problem. And whatever, I looked at the case with my sister that was going on at the same time. This is actually at the same time. Like she hadn't passed away yet. And it's like, why am I afraid? Like she's sitting in a bed right now getting chemicals pumped into her. And I'm pretty sure, like, I don't care what it is you're scared of. Some people are scared to talk in front of a crowd, right? If I were to tell you, hey, go up in front of 500 people and give a speech, a lot of people get clammy and nervous. And that's the way I would have been back then. But now I could go up and talk in front of 10,000 people if you dared me, because it's as easy as putting into perspective. Like, what am I scared of? Like, what, that I'm going to mess up my words, that they're going to laugh at me? First of all, they're probably not. Second of all, if they do laugh at me, who cares? They've all got busy lives. They're going to forget about you 15 minutes after they walk out of this place. Who cares? I'm pretty sure anybody that's on their deathbed right now, especially a kid, would give anything to trade places with you. Like, give me that paper. I'll go fucking give a speech. You want to take these chemicals?
Yeah.
And this doubt, it's just ridiculous. And that taught me so much. And then, like, just like that, I wasn't scared anymore. It was that easy. And then I was somebody that never had even been in a big city in my own country, let alone out of the country. And then I traveled. She was my inspiration to break out of the social barriers and leave the country. And I did for a good 5 years, accumulative. And because I figured to myself, well, if I can do it once, I'll be cured and I'll be fearless and I can do it more and more and more and more. And it worked. I figured it's like, if I thrust myself, fish out of water, a stranger in a strange land, know nobody, go totally by myself, disconnect myself from everything that I know and am familiar with at home that may or may not be causing negative vibes to pollute themselves into my everyday. If I go there totally separate from all that stuff, it's going to put me in a situation where, one, I have to refamiliarize myself with God because I don't know anybody anymore. I'm vulnerable, right? Yeah. When you're vulnerable, watch it. You'll talk to your higher power. I guarantee it. And two, it'll force me to talk to people I don't know, right? You're in a big city. You don't know what's going on. You're out of your country. You're going to go up. You have to go up to people and, hey, like, where's this place? Hey, can you direct me to this place? Just those little things. And it worked like wonders, man. I started off easy. I went to England. I figured, okay, English language. I won't go too crazy too fast. But after I did that, I worked in Scotland. I worked in Scotland in a hostel, that's a great story in its own, and spent my time in the UK. But dude, once I did that, I was ready for the big leagues. Then I went to Asia, like no English, like living in China for a while, and I became fearless. Everything that I predicted was right, and I was right. And I don't know. I felt like I was doing my sister justice. And to kind of wrap up the thing with my sister, I did sort of like come to terms with how I felt about all that stuff. Because I remember I was sitting one night in this room I had gotten in China, in Beijing. I was in Beijing at the time. And it was bugging me. I couldn't sleep. And it was driving me crazy. So I got up and I wrote a poem. And I know that sounds really, dainty. I write poetry.
Go for it, man.
I do. I write. It doesn't always come out like in poetry. I'll write music, and now I dabble and try and write stuff in screenplay form, but it's like it's got to come out some way. And I got up and I wrote this poem. I just wrote on paper, and it's just like throwing spaghetti at the wall. I don't think about it. I just write, and that's how I write. And if it's like going to be poetry, I write it like that. I don't think about what's going to rhyme, what's going to sound good. I just write. And if it's flawed, it's flawed. And I wrote this piece that I still have, and then I look at from time to time. And the second that I wrote that down and I sort of purged it onto the, I want to say paper, but it's not that poetic. It was on a laptop. Yeah. I'm a child of the 90s. I was instantly cured. It was therapy, right?
Yeah.
It was me owning up to my guilt and me saying I'm sorry on paper. or Microsoft Word. And I'm saying it worked. So there's something to that. Vocalizing and talking about things, it sort of relieves that pressure valve. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, but I'm rambling a little bit. But anyway, so I still feel stupid. We all deal with things. And my thing is, it's like the depression thing. I don't want to feel like that. I don't want to devalue life because I know it's a great thing. But I also show sympathy or empathy or both to people that, claim that they're not understood, because some people don't understand. Some people are like, hey, I feel a certain way. And then somebody else who doesn't get it and they can't relate, they're like, oh man, you need to go out and jog.
Yeah.
And there's something to that, because I don't think I'm to a point where I'm at a point where I think that's how I maintain myself pretty well, is I can go out and get exercise. I make sure I go out and I take a jog for an hour every day, and then I go to the gym, get some sun. That stuff helps. That's probably what keeps me pretty even keel most of the time. But when it hits me hard, dude, the last thing I want to do is go out and jog.
Yeah.
So that's that. And that's not their fault, but that's a testament to people just not understanding. They think it's just oh, you're sad. Go watch a funny movie. I've had people I don't talk about this stuff very much. Like I said, this is kind of what this is all about. One time I tried talking to somebody one time, and it kind of made me not want to do it anymore, because like I said, it was somebody that was great, but they didn't quite understand. And I think they literally told me to take a nap. Whenever I'm like this, I just go to sleep, wake up better. I'm like, oh, that's it? Who knew? I'll just take a nap.
Yeah.
I'll just go to sleep. And of course, when you're really over the past few days, man, of course you want to try that. That's all I want to do. You don't want to get out of bed. I laid in bed, and I literally laid in bed for 6 hours staring at the ceiling.
Yeah.
I couldn't make sense of anything. And, dude, I was bawling like a baby, because it just kind of happens, and you can't control what's going on. And all you want to do is actually fall asleep. You just kind of fall asleep. And this was a particular strong bout, and I woke up and I still felt that way. It didn't help. I felt that way, and I was like that for an entire next day. And, so I don't know. So maybe that's the point of all this. It's just therapy for me. That's probably where it started out, because like I said, it was a bit of a trigger when Zach and I, we just kind of talked about this in private a couple of days ago, like I said, and it kind of felt good. It did. And it's well, maybe this is a way for me to not directly talk because you feel like you're burdening people. I get it. I mean, now I know it's stupid. There's a bunch of people that would listen to you typically, but you feel like you're going to burden people. It's the thing you'd want to do most is talk to somebody when you're feeling like that. But the last thing you'll ever do is reach out to talk to somebody, because you don't know if you're going to be, you think you're a burden. You don't know if you're going to be judged. You don't know what's up. But I figured, hey, this is kind of a cool platform, because it's not like I'm directly calling somebody in the middle of the night and feeling like I'm going to burden them or bug them. I'm broadcasting it, right? Yeah. We're putting it in podcast form, glorious podcast form, and we're inviting people to listen to it if they want to. Mm-hmm. And hopefully maybe we can share a platform, and if something that we're talking about, it doesn't even have to be something we're not talking about. If somebody wants to share, send us a message, share a story that they got going on. We can relate. Let's talk. And I think I want to have people on the show. And, if you've got something going on in your life, I don't care. It doesn't have to be, I want to get this out. The depression thing's very relevant, because that's what we were talking about just recently. And that's kind of what was on my mind because of what I deal with sometimes. But, it doesn't have to be about that. I want this to be a no-walled type of atmosphere, right? I want to talk about religion if you want to. I want to talk about paranormal. I want to talk about the great beyond, life and death, heaven and hell, your fears. I like the idea of taboo topics all these topics that people they don't feel like they can talk about. Depression's one of them. We don't feel like we can talk about it. And thus we don't know what's normal or not. We're scared. We keep a lid on it, until things explode and somebody's like, going overboard with it. And but like, what's that?
I actually still have, because my backup, I still have our whole like conversation, I guess, if you want to tack it on in this episode or something.
I'll think about it, maybe. Oh, well, it's the backup. So like the quality, because I wasn't recording. We'll see. Yeah,
maybe. I'll send it to you and you can listen to it and everything.
Maybe we'll see. But because we're all about transparency here, that's the thing. I think if I doubt myself and I have to contemplate, that probably means I should do it, because my thing here is honesty. Like if I have to think twice about talking about something, that means I should do it. But it doesn't have to be about that stuff. Like I said, I'm into all of it. There's lots of taboo topics. For example, if you're somebody that is of faith, if you go to your church is, it's like, I think everybody deals with times in their life where they feel like they're losing their religion, right? They're losing their faith, or they're questioning, their higher power or what they're taught. And believe me, that's not something you talk about when you go to church. You're afraid to speak up. If sometimes you still go to church, but you're feeling those doubts. And the first thing you want to do is bring it up that, hey, in a room full of these quote unquote people that are so perfect that you're not quite on the same level right at that moment. You feel like it's the same thing with depression. You feel like you might be judged. You feel like you're not going to be understood. But the thing is everybody goes through times where they just question and they have to sort of reevaluate stuff. That's taboo. Let's talk about stuff like that. I don't care. I think I can't shut my mind off ever. I stay up late at night and I just think and think, and I think about the galaxy. I think about possibility of aliens. I think about, like I said, ghosts, and I think about the past. I think about the future. I think about, like I said, life and death and all that stuff. And I don't know. It's just,
I'm really sorry to hear about your sister, man. That's heartbreaking.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. So the thing with my sister, this is all stuff that I think, even if you can't directly relate to it, I think everybody can at least indirectly relate to everything we can talk about. That's the beauty of it, and that's something I learned when I traveled. The thing is it feels like life moves really fast. We're so consumed with our daily lives. And that was my thing. I was sitting in that apartment with the same Hot Pocket, watching the same Bob Saget TV show. And
basically my life now.
I couldn't differentiate that day from any of the previous days of the last 4 years. It's like, where's my life going? It was a blur, and I knew I had to change it. And so, when I traveled, I made it my life's mission to, I'm going to make sure that, for like right now, I don't want 2017 to be the same as 2018, and I don't want it to be the same as I want to be able to tell you exactly where I was in a month and a year if you call it out to me, right? I want it to stand out. And the thing is, like I was saying, life moves so fast. You think it all just goes by in a blur, but if you really stop, close your eyes, and you think about every moment you've ever had, like really itemize all the key moments in your life. I'm talking about all the times your feelings were hurt, every time that you laughed, you smiled, you were happy, Christmases and birthdays, the good memories and the bad, every time you've ever had your heart broke. When you really just kind of sit and itemize all that stuff in your mind, it really does feel like a lot, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Like go through every year of your life. And it's funny because when we think of things in the grand scheme of things, we kind of look at little checkpoints. It's like, oh man, it feels like just yesterday it was Christmas. That makes things go by so much faster. But like I said, you've actually been through a lot. And I thought to myself, well, what if I multiply that by 6 billion, right? There's a lot of people out there with a lot of stories that have done a lot of living. And that's what I did. I wanted to travel and I want to meet people that were from different places. I didn't want to be that stereotypical American that didn't know anything past their backyard and, America and all that stuff. I didn't want to be like that. I wanted to be cultured. And I wanted to learn the stories because it seemed like, man, I've been through so much. Can you imagine? You multiply that by so many people and how much you learn. I learned that we're all the same, basically. I mean, we're different. We come from different walks of life. Different things sort of satisfy us. Man, I went to places where they had very little. They were poor and living in slums, but they were happy. It was like the same bare necessities were making them happy. Well, I mean, like the things that should make us all happy were making them happy. They had no money. They had just like the bare minimum, if that, to get by. But they had like their kid, or they were smiling, they were laughing. They had fellowship, and it was crazy. We get blinded by that here in other first world countries where we have technology. We have like the broken nail syndrome, right? You have these people on TV that freak out and call certain things catastrophes when they're not, right? Like things that don't matter. They're not catastrophes. You know, celebrity culture and everything that happens, and even stuff in our everyday life, man. Like, and you see it all over social media. You know, people post pictures of something at their dinner or the club they're at, and it'll be like FML, fuck my life, or something. They'll be so mad over something stupid. I'm like, I've always got something in perspective. It's like, man, people die.
Mm-hmm.
People die. None of it matters. You're alive. You're healthy. If you got your health, you got your wealth, as the saying goes. But yeah, you know, when I met all those people around the world, I met Buddhists, Muslims, just people that didn't speak English, people that could speak English. And I learned that even if you can't speak their language, or, you know, and you come from totally different parts of the world, you can find a common thread with anybody. It's easy. You can break the ice so easy with somebody. I remember talking to this little kid in China, and couldn't speak a lick of English. He was poor. I mean, he was like in a slummy area. But it's as easy as saying something nice about the kid's shoes or the shirt he's wearing, finding something to relate to, right? It could be something, it could be like the same color as like what you're wearing. It could be something. It doesn't take much to really break the ice with somebody. And before you know it, you guys are comfortable. You guys are comfortable, and it just unravels from there. It's really amazing. It's really insane to watch it and just really step outside of your zone with that stuff. And it makes you realize that some people in privileged countries got their heads up their asses with a lot of things. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter. But yeah, thank you for the words about my sister. I mean, we could go on all day about that stuff, but
that really got me, man. I'm crying, dude.
I can tell, because you can relate to it, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
here's how you can relate to it. Because you have a little niece you talk fondly of all the time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's good when people can put stuff in perspective. When you see something like that happen to somebody else, you should put in perspective, like, oh man, if that ever happened to such and such person, I don't know what I could do. And it makes you cherish them. Because life is so fragile. It's not guaranteed. And that also helps you cope too. I mean, when you really think about it, that life isn't guaranteed. Like literally, you could get squashed by a bus tomorrow. Mm-hmm. It does help you not be afraid.
Yeah.
Like, don't be afraid to live your dreams. Don't be afraid to take chances. You know, don't be afraid to, you only live once, man. Is that what the kids are saying? YOLO? Are they still saying that? I don't know. Maybe not. But don't. Seriously, why be afraid? Why be afraid of failure? It's so stupid. Like, we're all going to be in a pine box 50, 60, 70 years or whatever. Anyway, you might as well make the most out of it, you know? In my case, it's like, I don't know. I think we should go for what we really want, what's going to make us happy. And I think if God blesses us with any sort of wealth, we're always obligated to share it, you know, and I think it's our responsibility. So it's like, I would love to be in this place where I could employ people and give advice to people and help people in any way. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all just people that want to buy our mom's houses, right?
Yeah. Take
care of the people we love and all that stuff. But, you know, it's funny not to, we can kind of go down that. So you relate to me like you can think about someone like your niece or whoever. I mean, obviously, but also I'm not trying to I want you to feel comfortable talking about stuff. I don't want to just talk for you, but I know you've experienced loss as well. And, what's happened is, I'll actually backpedal a little bit and I'll say this. Remember how I said, things that don't make sense in the moment will make sense later?
Mm-hmm.
Everything serves a purpose. It might not seem like it. It may seem totally worthless that a child dies, but it's not without, valuable cause. Because what happened, or valuable reason rather. See, my dad was not a good guy. He wasn't a good guy. Him and my mother were pressured into marriage at 16. They started having kids, about immediately, almost. And he was kind of a wild child. He wasn't ready to grow up. He was a rebel. And, some of the older kids like me, I'm on the top of the totem pole. We didn't have it good. He was in and out of prison. He was abusive. He was a drug addict, abusive physically, emotionally, you name it. It was everything, which, eventually you learn to take a hit. The emotional abuse never gets better. That's actually far worse. Right.
Mm-hmm.
You learn to take a flight of stairs like a champ, right? Or whatever, head through a wall or whatever. But, I don't know. It was weird, man, because like I said, he was not an ideal father. He had a lot of demons. And it seemed like when my sister was born, the one that passed away, she was the last. She was the bottom of the totem pole. He was 41. I think he was 40. He was 40. That's about the time he probably should have started having kids and he was still bad up until then. Dude, actually, he probably hit his peak of badness at about 40 when she was just born. But when she started getting a little older after she was born, it just changed him. It was so weird. Like I watched this giant just melt because he was one of those guys, hard exterior, never smiled, didn't tell you his feelings. I've known my dad longer than, most people, and I don't know a fucking thing about him. I still don't. Some dads will be like, they'll be telling you old stories from high school and stuff like that, and all these stories you've heard a million times. And I never heard anything. My dad might as well have been born in 1986 with me, because to me he didn't exist. He didn't exist before I did. Yeah, I don't know. He's a mystery, total mystery, still to this day, and it's crazy. He's the most fantastic, fascinating figure in my life because he's such an enigmatic presence. It blows me away. But anyway, when she was born, she changed him. This is before she got sick. She actually got him to respond like he was, he loved her. He told her he loved her. He just started acting like a father. This little girl changed him because she was special. She really was. And she brought my parents together because they had a very tumultuous relationship, very bad marriage. Like I said, he did nothing but cheat on my mom, womanizer, cheating on my mom, abusive, everything, all the cliches, they were there. I spent my childhood when he was around having to watch my mom cry and comfort her. And it's like I'm sitting in my bedroom with my mom while she's breaking down, just total breakdown because of what my dad did to her. Or my dad would always leave her for some 18-year-old girl out of high school or something, and ditch us and leave us, And as a kid, it's like you feel horrible, but you're also uncomfortable. Like, I don't know how I can help in this situation. Your mom's just but now it's like I really realized what she was going through as an adult. It's like, man, that's ridiculously hard. And before, right when she was born, my little sister, their marriage was at an all-time low. Horrible stuff. But then this child brought them together. Their marriage got better because they both bonded over this kid. And me, I wasn't jealous or anything. I thought it was great, because me and my dad's relationship was still kind of not the greatest. But I was happy that whatever was going on now was causing him to be a better father for the younger kids at home, even though I was an adult for years and moved out of the house. So I thought it was great. He didn't have to say he was sorry to me, even though he was extra bad to me. I mean, really bad to me. I didn't need an apology from him. I know that's not his style. Because I think around that time when he was around 40 and Meredith, my sister, was born, it was one of those things where I could see in his eyes that he was sorry. You know,
Yeah.
like I could tell he's sorry. He doesn't have to say it. That was good enough for me. And I was just happy that he was learning to be better. Anyway, now he was already starting to change his ways, which is great. Then she gets the diagnosis. And it's like, oh man, like, it's just like, it's like Indian given, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it felt like God gave my father something to turn his ways around and to actually teach him how to quote unquote love and, you know, be a parent. And then it gets ripped from him. And, I felt bad for him. I felt super bad for him when she got that diagnosis and I saw how much it rattled him. And it's so weird because I felt bad for him, but at the same time, it's like, man, I got to see my dad be a human being for the first time in my life. It was insane. It was unreal. And it was good though, because it helped me actually relate to my father for the first time in my life. Like, oh my God, you have a soul?
Yeah.
You know, seriously, it's like, oh my God. And, you know, I had forgiven my father before that, so it was all good. But like, man, it was good. It was changing him. And, and he wowed me. Like he stepped up to the plate. And when she was sick, like I said, he worked his job full time. He drove hours to the Children's Hospital every moment he had free. He was not getting any sleep. He had to sacrifice his precious time with the kid that he loved to work a soulless job. Props, respect. And he rose to the occasion. And then she dies. And now I'm scared because I was concerned that, this is going to send him over the rails and he's going to go back to being the same old guy from before. You know, like he's going to start doing the hard drugs again. He's going to, you know what I'm saying? Like he was that guy.
Yeah.
And he was always that guy growing up where he would, you know, me, I didn't come from a religious immediate family. You know, nobody went to church or anything like that. And I sort of tried to discover spirituality and all that stuff, on my own. And he was the guy that would mock me for it and say, fuck God and flip off the sky. You know, he was that guy, you know, and he wasn't even like, let me be myself. He would be like, he would mock me. He would mock me and like say I was stupid. So it was kind of a mind fuck, but, yeah. So I was scared he was going to get bitter when she died. He was going to get bitter. He was going to get bitter towards God. He was going to get bitter towards everything. And he was going to grow distant. But no, man, this is where the miracle happened. Wowed me. When she passed away, he did what everybody should probably strive to do. And he embraced all the kids even more. Yeah. And he didn't throw his fist to the sky. If anything, he actually developed a bit of a faith because it kind of like worked backwards where it's like, basically my sister showed him that, you know what, there is life outside of this. There is a God. And also it's like, there's no way that this girl he loves so much wasn't with him still in a spiritual sense. Right. Mm-hmm. So it was different. It had the complete adverse effect of what I thought was going to happen. And it was amazing. And so get this. Like I said, he did a great thing. He really embraced it and did the best. He did exactly. He did amazing. But so 1 year later, like almost exactly 1 year later from her getting diagnosed, my dad got diagnosed. And so we're talking 1 year. My mom and dad were still mourning, right? Mm-hmm. They still were. They were still living in the house without my sister that she was in. They had pictures of her all over the house and things like. They were still very much mourning. And my dad, very stubborn guy, never went to a doctor. My parents are those types of people. They don't want to go to the doctor because they think something's going to go wrong. Like that's kind of an ass backwards way of thinking. Like, well, what if they tell me something I don't want to hear? I'm like, okay. I mean, I totally get it, but you know, it's kind of backwards logic. Anyway, my dad never went to the doctor. And of course he had years of abuse, like drug abuse and alcohol abuse. That stuff catches up to you. He wasn't doing that stuff then, but you know, damage is done with that stuff. Right.
What do you have?
So in the middle of the night, this guy that never would go to a doctor basically was pissing coffee. It was like black.
Really?
And then he freaked out. He's like, okay, I got to go to a doctor. And then it was just one of those things. It was like round 2 where 1 second, everything's fine. Like 1 second, everything's cool. And then the next second, you go to the doctor because you started pissing coffee, and literally the doctor was like, yeah, you've got cancer all over your body, and they couldn't help him. This all happened so fast. It's just like our head was spinning. We're at the doctor, and he's like, and they said, yeah, you've got cancer. They said it started as colon cancer, but who knows when he had that originally because it was spread all over.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, your liver's messed up from all the years of abuse. His liver, like your liver, couldn't take chemotherapy.
Right.
Yeah. And so they basically sent him home saying, nah, you got maybe, they literally said you got anywhere from 2 weeks to a couple of months. Can you imagine that? Like everything's okay. You had a normal night, you know, are still kind of mourning and somber from your daughter dying, but you have a normal night relatively, you know, cook dinner for the family, the whole thing, watching a movie with your wife. And then all of a sudden, within an hour, you're at the doctor, and then you're getting this head spinning news. And now all of a sudden you just went home with a death sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine that? And I went too. I went to the doctor. I went with them. I was there for the whole thing, and crazy. It's just like it's another dose of reality I got. You know, I'm trying to like live vicariously through people the best I can. And, and so they sent him home. I can't imagine what my father was thinking on that drive home. I can't even recall if he was the one driving the car. I don't remember what was going on, but can you imagine if you were just told that you were going to die and you thought you probably went in thinking you just had some kind of infection?
Yeah.
Who knows what's going on? And my mom probably took over the steering wheel at that point. I mean, like so we drove home, and it was a very interesting evening. The next day, like I said, it was the next day, so I can't imagine how he slept that night, or him and my mom, what they were talking about in their bedroom. That's just crazy to me. But the next day, he got a call from a doctor, and it was this doctor that, you know, because I know they had dismissed him and told him, hey, you know, there's nothing we could do for you. Go home. You know, really no candy coating to it. No real kid gloves. It's just like, hey, bye. Don't let the door hit you. Oh, good, thanks. We'll still bill you. But he got a call from this doctor the next day, and this doctor said, hey, I want to try something. It's experimental. It's risky, but because your liver's not in a good spot. But basically, he wanted to try something. He said, we want to put a stent in your liver. Let's put a stent in your liver. Let's try that and see if we can get let's bring up your hemoglobin levels. Let's see if we can get your liver in good enough shape to accept chemo, to accept treatment. And he did. I mean, he went from the last night saying there's nothing we can do, you know, go start making arrangements, to, hey, let's try this. You want to try it?
Yeah.
And then he went in, and they put him on a table, and they were going to put him under. And I remember he was telling us this after he had gone through it. He said, yeah, they were putting me out, and they were trying to like give me the anesthesia or put me out or whatever. And then as I'm sort of like drifting off, the whole counting back from 10 type of thing, the doctor says, oh yeah. And then he tells me when I'm drifting off on the table that there's a 90% chance you won't make it off this table, because it was that he was in bad shape. He's like, yeah, this might kill you right here. But like, basically it was kind of what do we got to lose situation, but he wasn't prepared for that. He's like, it told me this on the table.
And it didn't. So
no, he didn't. So he woke.
All right.
It was a 6. Yeah. You're like on the edge of your seat. Like, what happened? No. And so, yeah, it was a success, and he had the stent in his liver. And so,
did he outlive the original? Like,
oh yeah, they told him the couple, he could have been dead in a few weeks they literally like were like weeks. That's what they said. Yeah. He lasted some months. It's funny because I remember it being closer to 6 months. My mom swears it was like 3 months, like my sister. But regardless, the stent was working, and and it got to a point where his liver was as strong as yours or mine, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, hey, we got your liver up to speed. You're ready for treatment. Let's go ahead and try it. And it was giving my father some positivity. Like, all right, well, you know, you always get that hope, like, okay, well, maybe I can beat this type of thing. And it's funny because never, ever, he always kept a stonewall approach to it. Like, even after he got, it's like he was, you couldn't really tell that he was he was going through what he was going through, because he never talked anyway. He was always no expression on his face, man of little words. You would have never known. So it blew me away that he wasn't just totally breaking down, because that just wasn't his style, I guess, to show that emotion. And but they got his liver into a level where he could start taking chemo, but they started small. They said, we're going to kind of give you baby doses of chemo, right? Work up to it. And he started going in for chemo and getting like baby doses of it. And it was doing him well. Like he was, I think he was probably taking away his appetite. It probably had some effects, but he was already bald, he was. Yeah. But he was in higher spirits because they kept saying, oh man, things are going well. Things are going well. The small doses are good. You're responding well to it. And man, he was riding high. And then came a point where they're like, you know what? You're ready. I think we're ready to do a full dose of chemo now, right? And really hit it head on after a few months or so. And I remember he went in, did his full round of chemo. And of course, he's kind of riding high now, because it's like, wow, he's already outlived their expectations, and he's already doing, he's already beating all the odds they already told him from the beginning. And he goes and he did his first round of chemo. And I remember I was spending all my time at their house at this point, because I didn't want to happen with having my sister again. I didn't want to not be around. I was like, I'm going to stay here.
Yeah.
I was actually moving. I was actually moving to California. I was trying to do my pilgrimage and kickstart my life, and all kind of thanks to my sister. I'm like, I'm going to be daring. And I was visiting home in Omaha, where Riverman lives, and one of our co-hosts normally. And I was making a pit stop there, saying hi to him and a couple of friends, and I was going to fly from there to California. And literally, when I was at the airport from there to go to California to start this new life, I had a job lined up and all this stuff, everything. I got the call from my mom that my dad was going through that. That's what it was. It turned out to be that. And it just, I think it was, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to get my timeline straight. I think it was, it was something to do with that. But basically, I had to make a choice that, okay, I'm not going to regret this. I'm not going to do like I did with my sister. I literally turned around and flew back home. I had given up my apartment back home. I had given up where I was from. I gave up my apartment, my job, and everything. And my life changed too. And I went back and I stayed with my parents. And because that was more important. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to live with this. But anyway, that's why I was around the whole time. But I'm glad I was. But anyway, when he came back after that day of doing the full thing of chemo, dude, he was great. That was actually the best day he'd had, the way he felt the whole time he'd been diagnosed. He was in high spirits. I remember we went to the store. He came home. He's like, hey, let's go to the market. Let's buy some stuff. Let's have a big barbecue. Because he liked to cook big feasts and stuff because he was a chef. And he was in high spirits, acting normal, making jokes. It was crazy. And this is the first day he had had his real round of chemo earlier that day. Everything was so amazing. And then we come home, we cook. He does this whole thing, makes his big meal. It's great. And then kind of after the meal, he starts not feeling too good. So he goes to bed early, kind of goes to lay in his bedroom, whatever. And then in the middle of the night, all of a sudden he starts screaming and moaning and screaming, in pain. And he was in agony, and he was begging, emergency room. And it takes a lot for this guy to beg for the emergency room. Take him to the emergency room. And that very first round of full-fledged dose of chemo, burned a hole in him, basically. Septic shock.
Really?
Yeah. It just burned a hole in his inside somewhere, and he was going to sepsis or whatever they call it. And, that was, then they take him to the hospital, and then they put him into a coma. They put him into an induced coma,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And once again, it's the roller coaster of cancer. He went through the greatest day he'd ever had, on top of his game, thinking, I'm going to beat this. Literally a couple hours later, he's in a coma. What just happened?
Mm-hmm.
What just happened? And they were telling my mom, and they were telling us that they didn't know if he could bring him out of the coma, because they're like, if we bring him out of this coma, he's probably going to die. He probably won't make it. Or if we bring him out, he's not going to be right. So it was like a whole bunch of questions on what they should do. And, see, I was personally impacted by all this because me being the chicken shit I am, I had a lot of unresolved business with my father, a lot of unresolved business. Like I said, man, we had a history, and, not to get too emotional or anything, but, he never told me he loved me. He wasn't that type of guy. Like I said, he was super abusive. He hated me, right? I was just the reason why he wasn't this or that. I was the reason why he wasn't a doctor. I was the reason why he wasn't this. Like, he just had all this resentment towards me. And, I grew up later to realize it was just jealousy. It was. He was jealous because his life kind of hit the fast track early, and I was living my life and not, having a bunch of kids early and getting doused with responsibility. And I was actually doing these things that I wanted to. And I think he just was extremely envious of that. I represented what he lost, youth. And, but, I wanted to talk with him. I wanted to have a talk with him. I wanted to be able to tell him, hey, I forgive you. And I wanted to hear him say selfishly, I think I probably wanted to hear him acknowledge it too. And I wanted him to say, I wanted to tell him I loved him for the first time ever. And I wanted him to tell me he loved me back. It's that simple. Because, back then when I was a kid, you go through different phases. It's like you're a little kid, every little kid at the heart of it. I don't care who you are. If you're a guy, every little boy just wants to impress his daddy. That's it. Mm-hmm. You just want your dad's attention. You want to impress him because he hung the moon and the stars. It's just like my little sister. When you're that young, all you know is your family. Like, your dad is like the king, the emperor of the universe as far as you're concerned. And, even despite the abuse, physical, emotional, all the abuse, I still just wanted my dad's attention. And I never got it. And he never told me he was proud of me. I remember I got, you always want to try and find things to bond over with your father. And my father was into music. He liked to listen to music, and he liked Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, Metallica, all that stuff. So I gravitated towards it. Hey, I wanted to like that music too, because then we could have something in common. And I did get into it. And I figured, I'm going to learn to play guitar, because maybe my dad will be proud of that. He'll be impressed. And, man, I remember I got a guitar, and, I remember one day I was really bad. I was young, I was fucking 12 or whatever. And I remember I intentionally left my bedroom door open, and I had learned the intro riff to one of his favorite songs. I don't know if it was a cliche, Crazy Train, or an Enter Sandman. I don't even remember, to be honest with you, but it was a song that he really liked. And it was just the first bar, right? And I played it over and over again. But I was proud of that. And I left the door open. I'm okay, eventually he's going to walk down the hall and he's going to hear me playing this riff. If I just keep playing it over and over and over again, he's bound to hear it.
Yeah.
And, I'm going to get his attention. Man, I'll never forget. He walks in there, and then he mocks me. Says I sound like shit, and he starts mocking he has a guitar, doing sort of a derpy face, oh, you think you're a rock star? Yeah, you're a fucking rock star. Fucking get like I was a piece of shit. I wasn't good. Yeah, dude, I cried like a baby. I'd hurt. That was a turning point for me. I think that's when I shifted gears, and then I became resentful, because then you enter your teenage years, and then your high school and your late middle school. And I became resentful. I'm you know what? At that moment, I was fuck this guy. Right. No, fuck this guy. And so then, but I used that as my fuel. I didn't let it, myself become downtrodden because of that. I actually used that as fuel to be resentful and do everything anyway. So I kept playing guitar, and I got really good, and I kept doing all these things I wanted to do, and just kind of out of spite. But that was a turning point for me, and I never forgot about that. There's tons of things I could point out, but for some reason I always go back to that moment, because it was just so hurtful. Cause it's like, that was, cause it was the turning point. That was the moment where I realized every moment up until that point, I had just taken that abuse. I had consistently tried to impress him and get his love, even though he clearly was not giving it back to me. And that was the moment where I'm like, oh, what the fuck am I doing? Fuck this guy. You know, what this guy abuses people. He's horrible. It's just, he's the reason why we have cold winters and no electricity. We used to have cold ass winters, man. We'd have a bunch of little kids surrounded by a space heater with no utilities, no light, sometimes no food. And I'm like, this is the guy's love I'm trying to get.
Yeah.
And then he won't even tell me good job. He won't even acknowledge that I'm playing a piece of his favorite song. Who gives a shit if it's not perfect and I don't know the second part? Who cares? So anyway, I wanted to talk to him before he died. And I just wanted to say I forgave him. I had since forgiven him. And because the thing is to forgive somebody, you have to try and understand them. And as I got older, I did. I'm like, wait a second. My dad's like this because of a certain reason too. He had a certain upbringing too. So there's a reason to this. So I'm not saying that he's not responsible. I think everybody's responsible for their own actions, no matter what they do. But at least I can understand it. You know, I don't have to condone it, but I can understand where it came from. And through that, I forgave him. I mean, there's a reason why he doesn't talk about his past, that he was so mysterious. You know, like what did he go through? What kind of abuse did he go through? You know? And I mean, there were certain types of abuse that I don't know if I can talk about because you know, it's different when it's not me.
Yeah.
But, let's just say I learned about some abuse that he experienced early on. You know what? I'm going to talk about it. I think it's healthy for my dad too. So anyway, but I'll get there. But I understood my father, and that helped me forgive him later on in life. So, but I still wanted to have a talk with him, but I was a chicken shit, man. Like the thing is when he got the death notice, like right when he went to the doctor the first time, I'm like, oh shit, I gotta have a talk. But then things started looking up. And of course I started feeling relief, like, oh, okay, I got plenty of time.
Yeah.
I got plenty of time to talk to him because he was the hardest guy in the world to talk to. Like this is, you know, you've seen that 70s show.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He's like not a network TV version of Red Foreman.
Yeah.
Red Foreman's really good compared to my dad, but he was super hard. You can't talk to him. Like Red Foreman's great compared to my dad, trust me, but I'm just trying to like find some kind of like parallel, but like, he's not the guy you can go up to and be like, express your feelings, because any other time in the past, you were a baby. He's the kind of guy that would try and make you cry. Like, are you going to cry? You fucking baby. You're going to cry. You're going to cry. You're going to cry. Yeah. He's totally insensitive. So very hard to talk to him. So when he was on the upswing and things were looking good, I'm like, great. I can hold this off a little more, or maybe I won't have to do it at all. That whole thing. Yeah. And, you just don't expect it to turn like drastically in a moment's notice. You think you're going to have some sort of advance notice, like, oh, he's on the decline. Now it's kind of going in reverse. You better start thinking about talking to him. Nope. Like he was, like I said, riding high, the best day he'd ever had. Things were looking up. 2 hours later, he was in a coma. And I'm sitting there looking at him in a coma like, oh my God, no, wake up. I got to talk to you. Literally. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, once again, I was like, you asshole, you get me again. Now you're in a coma. No, wake up. We got to talk. Because I didn't want to have something else to live with. And, man, that drove me crazy. I remember seeing him at the hospital when they had they had him strapped to a bed, and they had him strapped down like King Kong. Because he was in a coma. Because it's like, man, they had him strapped down, I guess just in case he woke up or something. They had something like thrown down his throat. And they had he was strapped down like leather, like a mental patient. It looked like, because my dad was a big guy. It looked like King Kong. And I'll never forget, man, I saw the most pure form of my dad I've ever seen in my life, because in that chair, in that room, he started to come out of the coma.
Really?
Yeah. And he didn't even know what happened. Can you imagine? He went to the doctor and all of a sudden he's out. Do you think he's going to know where he's at when he wakes up?
Yeah.
No, I saw him open up. He's got this big thing down his throat, so he can't talk or whatever, and he's strapped. I see his eyes open, And he starts freaking out. You see the terror in his eyes that he's strapped to this bed. Like, what the hell's going on? Like, talk about you're staring mortality in the face.
Yeah.
And he starts freaking out. I've never seen my dad act like that. And then they started trying to put him out, like put him under, pump him with stuff. And I just looked at his eye because he had stuff all over his face. So you couldn't really see his face. But I just looked at his eye turn and look at me and my mom, and a tear rolled down his eye.
Yeah.
And I saw fear in my dad's face and my eyes for the first time in my life. And I felt super bad for him because it felt like I was looking at a kid, like a child, like helpless. You know, how horrible and terrifying is it to wake up strapped, bound? You got something down your throat. You can't talk. And it is horrible, man. My heart got ripped out of my chest, and they put him back out, and that was it. And then came the moment of, okay, what do we do? Do we pull him out of this coma? What do you want to do? And then it was one of those things where if we pull him out, he could die. Like, there's a great, great, great chance he'll just die. But you know, and I think maybe my mom was in the same headspace of, we got to have a last moment with him or something. We got to take this chance instead of just like pulling a plug or something, you know?
Yeah.
And, I know I wanted to have a chance with him. So we decided to try and get him out of the coma, and he came out of it, but I missed my opportunity, man, because when he came out of it, there was so much damage done to his brain. He was brain damaged from like oxygen and stuff like that levels. But, yeah, so when he got out of the coma, he was like, he had the mind of a 3-year-old.
Really?
It was weird. It was weird. My mother, she regrets it. I don't know if she says that she hates it because now the last memory of her husband, this guy she knew for all those decades, was now reduced to how she saw him last, like infantile. But he got out of the coma, and he was looking at my mom, and it was so weird, man. There was this moment where they brought him like a Coca-Cola and some ice cream or something, and he was literally sipping the Coca-Cola with a straw really slow. Everything was slow motion. And he sips it, and he literally looks at us, and he's like, "Isn't that the best thing in the world?" Like, he was talking like a kid, like his ice cream. And he went home. They sent him home, and for hospice care, you know, because he was still going to die, type of thing. And they sent him home hospice and set up his like bed and stuff, and in his bedroom and stuff. And he lasted 3 days from that point. But it was weird being in that house with him in hospice because it was almost like Zelda from Pet Sematary. You know, like he didn't want, it was weird going in there in his bedroom because he was quiet. He didn't talk. He was almost like a half vegetable because you'd walk in there and he'd be watching TV and his eyes would be open. You'd put the TV on for him. He couldn't work the remote himself. And, you know, I'd talk to him like, Dad, do you want to watch MASH or do you want to watch this? Oh, that's okay. It was weird. But so he was there, but he wasn't there. And, yeah, dude, I remember 3 days into it, I was looking at him and I just knew, I'm like, Mom, I think this is it. I think he's going to die. Cause he was starting to do his hallucination stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was starting to do the same thing where he was seeing stuff. And so we called his nurse immediately. The nurse came over and she immediately called a priest or whatever, or, you know, whoever, you know, religious figure, and got everything prepared. And yeah, you go around the body and you say a prayer and you do that whole thing. And dude, he was sitting there and he wasn't dead yet, but like he was breathing heavily and he was looking off into space. I put my hand on his chest. I did. I could have never did this to my dad when he was lucid, by the way. How weird is that? But I did. And he was taking breaths and I felt his heartbeat for the last time. Like, that's heavy stuff.
Yeah. And
then I felt his heart stop beating, and then they took him away. And they called the people and they hauled his body away. And I didn't get my moment because I wanted my moment to talk to him. But like, even when he was in hospice, I couldn't talk to him anymore because who was I talking to? Yeah. I wasn't talking to the guy. I was talking to like the innocent version of the guy. So once again, I had some things that needed resolved that I wasn't able to get resolved. So I did the next best thing. And, you know, because the funeral was like the next day or something, right? And I did the next best thing, and I took out a notebook and a pen, and I just wrote him a letter. I wrote a letter to a dead guy, and it was kind of like the poem, right? You know, where it's kind of like purged out something. Man, I started writing, and I didn't stop writing. I had like 20 pages. Not even joking. I just let it all out from like day one, and I just word vomited everything on this page, and I wrote 20 pages front and back, and I was crying my eyes out. So like as I'm writing, my tears are like making the ink in the paper all wet and soggy and smeary, but I just kept writing, and I just like, it was just cathartic. And I had this giant ass letter, and then I folded it all up, put it in a big old notebook, envelope. And the next day at the funeral, I put that envelope in between his arm. Like, you know, I put it in the casket with him, and that was it. So I wrote my daddy a letter, and I buried it with him, and it better than nothing. You know, I felt good after writing it, because I was crying like just crazy. It was everything, because I was able to say everything. And believe me, I addressed it all in the letter. Basically that I was a coward and I couldn't talk to you. And here I am resorting to writing it down because I'm such a coward. But, you know, it's all I can do, the whole thing. I told him the whole thing about, hey, look, you know, I forgive you. I loved you. But you know what? This was horrible. And, you know, I just wanted your love. And I was just a little boy that wanted to impress you. Dude, I let it all out. Got super candid. And it kind of worked. And I gave him that, and it's still there with him. It's still buried with him. But it was like a signal. It was like a symbol. Not a signal. It was a symbol of closure, right? It was my symbol of closure, the best I could do. But anyway, that actually goes back to my sister, though, because that was my sister's purpose. So you ask, why does she's so innocent, why does she have to suffer? Well, my theory is, my dad was going to die a year later, so God sent my sister to change him before he died, right? Because he was going to go out on a real bad note, but he actually went out on a good note because of her. So the theory that me and my family like is that, you know what? God sent him an angel. She broke him down and rebuilt him, and he left the world in time as a good guy with some faith, right? With the whole thing. So it's actually a happy ending, in my opinion. And so, and do you want to know, I'll say one last thing, at the funeral, because this is trippy, man. This could be like a segue into a future podcast where we talk about the paranormal and stuff. But we went to, at the memorial service or the wake or whatever, this guy comes in that my dad used to work with. He hadn't worked with him in like 5 or 6 years, but he was always really close to him when he did. And, but we hadn't heard from this guy in like quite a few years. And, he had no idea. He would have had no idea that my dad died, or that the wake was that day or anything. But he comes in, he knew me, knew my mom, and his name was Ray. And he goes, I was sleeping last night, to my mom. I was in bed. And then he didn't know my dad was sick or dying or he didn't know any of that stuff, right? He didn't know. Mm-hmm. He said, I was in this dream. I was asleep. He's like, I think I was in a dream. It was like a really lucid dream or something. But in walked my room was Mike, who was my dad, was Mike. He walked in my room, and he didn't know anything about my sister either. And he said, he was holding the hand of a little girl, and told me what was happening, and it was crazy. And he told me to call you. Yeah. And yeah, it's what he says. He's like, I didn't know anything about this, and sure enough, I looked it up and I saw what had happened, and here I am. And he went to the wake service. Isn't that crazy? That's absolutely insane.
It is.
Yeah. So. Crazy stuff. I know we're all over the map with this stuff today.
I feel like I didn't say very much.
I know, man.
When you told me you wanted to do this new idea for a podcast, I did not expect I'd be bawling on the fucking mic.
I know. See, that's what Zach was here for. He was to add the effect, the cry. Added effect. But
This is gonna be embarrassing when I listen to it later. No, it won't, man. I'm not a shit.
No,
I don't give a fuck.
You can't, dude. To see, that's what it's about. It's all about transparency. This podcast is all about honesty and openness. And like I said, I know we didn't really pinpoint on one topic in particular today because it's sort of the intro episode. But I think I really just kind of wanted to talk about myself a little bit on who I am and kind of give little tastes on the things that I have experience with, because I'm not a professional. I'm not some doctor. I'm not going to try and tote myself as holier than thou. I'm just a regular guy. But maybe regular people is what regular people also want. I don't know. I'm just saying I've got experience with abuse. I've got experience with depression. I've got experience with broken homes and families, and I've got experience with loss. And, you know, we all can relate on this stuff, and it's very therapeutic. It's very cathartic for me.
The idea of cancer scares me too, because like,
yeah,
it runs in my family, and
whose family doesn't it these days? You know,
my niece, my brother-in-law, her dad actually had a brain tumor when he was a kid.
Yeah, it's scary stuff, man. I'm officially labeled high risk because my dad and my sister, you know, so I go to the doctor and I get checked out. I'm responsible, and I take, because that's another thing I had to learn from my father. He didn't take care of himself. His death could have been technically, clinically avoidable, right? They could have caught that early on and they could have fixed it. But so I go to the doctor, you know, I do all these things, and, you know, and I just have to accept that, you know, one of these days I might go to the doctor, and I'm not going to be like healthy as a horse always. You know, we get older, things happen. And so let's just live it up. Let's not be afraid to do what we want. You know, like right now, I'm doing this Bear All podcast, hopefully going to resonate with some people that want to sort of create a dialogue and get that going here. And I'm not going to be afraid to be open anymore. I don't care, you know? So, but yeah, I mean, I've already made a lot of stride. I told you I had social problems. I didn't like being touched and all that stuff. And then when my sister died, I started traveling. I broke out of that shell, man. Now I don't shut up. I podcast. I talk all the time. I touch. I hug people. I'm not afraid to give hugs. You know, I work on trying to tell people I love them, because that was really hard too. I didn't come from a family where we told each other we loved each other. We didn't do that because my dad never said that. Yeah. My dad never threw around the love word, so it was weird. We don't tell each other we love her, and that's something I wanted to fix. You know, so there's people that I make a chore, and I try to tell people I love them and all that stuff. And eventually it doesn't get weird anymore. And that's why I had a bubble too, man. You know, when people get really close to me, I'd sit there and like kind of take a step back and, you know, kind of get in the defensive mode. And that's not because I wanted to, or I really thought these people were going to like do anything or had any. No, it's just, it was like it was my reaction, my natural muscle reaction, because when I was a kid, I associated people getting too close to doing bad things to me, hitting me, you know, or whatever. So I would get in the fetal position and, you know, so it was just sort of reaction. And I had to break that cycle, and I have, which is great. So that's what it's all about. It's all about healing and, you know, getting that much needed therapy. But like I said, we didn't really pinpoint on any one thing, any topic. Future episodes, I want to be a little bit more topical. And I guess we'll sort of base that around who we talk to. And yeah, and I apologize. I do want to get Zach. You can share something, man. I mean, I know you've experienced stuff like that too. So don't feel like you can't.
Yeah. Emotional roller coaster, man. I didn't know you had a sister. That was all new to me.
Yeah, I'll have to send a picture. She was adorable. You don't want to talk about, you know, anybody who's lost her? You don't want to be open with our listeners? You don't have to.
It's just like, yeah, similar. Like, even like the last thing I said to my dad before he died was like the same thing I always did. Like, love you. And even then, it's like, you feel like you have so much left unsaid, you know.
But you're lucky, man. You guys had that relationship where you could say, you know, you're lucky to where you could say, like, hey, the last thing or one of the last things I said to this person was I love them. And that's why it's important. I mean, they say that stuff growing up, like, you know, always tell people you love them because you never know when you're going to say. That's true, man. Because if you make a regular habit of telling people you care about that you love them, chances are the last thing you say to that person is going to be that you loved them. Don't let people forget that. So you're lucky that you had that relationship. Never had it with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
So
that sucks.
How did you, if I can ask, I don't really know. How did your dad pass away? We never really, you know, obviously, like I said, it's like one of those things where there's certain things you just don't ask people and you're afraid to talk about it. But I feel like I've, you know, earned something today. I've talked about a lot. No, what happened? How did your dad pass away?
He had a lot of back problems, and they got him on opioids, which he started, you know, abusing.
Yeah, man, I didn't know it was that heavy.
Yeah,
my dad abused substances, and it was horrible, man. That was his downfall. And like I said, they eventually got him. Like, they didn't get him directly. They got him indirectly when his body wasn't strong enough to fight a cancer. But, man, I didn't know that about your dad either. That's horrible. Especially when it happens in a way like that, because I hear about that all the time with people that have like horrible back issues and they get on like painkillers because of pain, you know, and then, they kind of get down that path because of that. That's super sad, right? Because it's like they're not getting into some sort of addictive behavior because of recklessness. It's because of pain. That's horrible, man. It breaks my heart. But it's heavy stuff, man.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a good place to kind of try and wrap it up. You know, it's getting a little deep, getting a little heavy. But like I said, that's the point of it. And like I said, I want to stress that this is sort of just our test episode. This is our first episode. I want people to reach out, and if anybody has any dialogue, it can be about anything. It doesn't have to be about this per se. It doesn't have to be about loss. It doesn't have to be about, like, it can be, but like I want to talk about everything. And so hypothetically, with the next episode, I want to start getting into the format. If you guys have any questions you guys ask or comment, we're going to take a segment to address all of them, answer every single question we get, unless they get super overwhelming. But please have a voice and say something, and we'll talk about it. And you know what? If you want to send it more in private and not in the public forum, do that as well. If you feel like you'd like to come on the podcast, I really would like that, because I want to try and have a new guest as much as possible every week if we can get to that point. So, you know, message me sort of your testimony, what you want to talk about. And it can be about anything. It could be about this like stuff that's hard to talk about, emotional struggle, loss, depression, abuse, whatever you want to talk about. No filters here. Or, like I said, we're not going to be like this all the time. Like next time, we might be talking about, we could be talking political. We could be talking about, it doesn't matter. I'm just saying it could be whatever. Today was all about just sort of giving you an introduction to who we are. All right. Just trying to show you in good faith that, look, we're lifting the veil. Like I'm
an emotional wreck, apparently. Fuck me.
So I mean, I'm just, this is just sort of in good faith showing you that I'm going all in. Like, hey, look, I'm telling you, you guys can talk about anything because we'll talk about it. So, but that's all it is. It's about being real. It's about being transparent. So any questions that you guys have, please ask them. Because chances are there's something that we can relate to. And, you know, maybe we can build a bit of a community going on here. But yeah, I'd love to have some of you guys on. So send private messages if you want, comment. We will address all of them. And, who knows, next time I want to get into talking about the Corey Feldman thing. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, cause that's a whole thing. That's another thing too. When do we stop these podcasts? Do we just like go?
Yeah.
Or do we just stop? I think it's a pretty good place to stop, but for now, but yeah, man, I want to dig into the whole Corey Feldman thing, because that video, the more I think about that video he put out, the more I feel bad for him, man. Like, because it's just, you know how paranoid he seemed in that video?
Uh-huh.
Like, come on. It's like, I feel coming at it from all angles, I feel so horrible for what, happened to him. And I believe that wholeheartedly, that he was abused and he's just become so messed up from it. But at the same time, man, it also looks like the drugs have come up to him and he's a little paranoid, because you're right. I mean, I don't know what his motives are with the movie, but, him talking about, oh, this guy tried to hit me on the road. You'd think these powers that be, if you were going to have somebody killed, wouldn't you just have somebody if you're rich, have somebody come up to him, just shoot him behind the head and call it a day? Why would you just hire a guy that can barely drive, barely miss him on the side of the road?
Yeah.
It just sounds like tree people paranoia, but there's a lot of stuff I want to get into. Like I said, there ain't no limits. Let us know what you think of this podcast and what you kind of think of this angle. Hopefully it's good. Regardless, if people don't want to listen to this, it's therapeutic for me. So that's something. But hopefully it can be really cool for you guys as well. I'll go ahead and I'll pitch it. Revivalhouse.net is sort of the main website where we have other podcasts. We have our commentaries, which we do weekly, bi-weekly. We do them all the time. Got a lot of Halloween stuff, seasonal stuff up, Christmas stuff to come as well. We have the BTM podcast, which is the podcast we've been doing for 8 years or something like that. Lots of stuff going on, different various interviews with different guests. It's entertainment based, right? So different from this. So if you guys are into that, there's cool interviews with musicians and filmmakers and things like that. But hopefully you guys can kind of get on board with this and, maybe even some of the other stuff we do. And I don't know. We look forward to more of Zach breaking down.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm all about it too. All right. Well, that's all I got. You got anything, Zach?
That's all I got.
Oh, man. Bye-bye, puppets.
Welcome to the Deep End with your host, Aaron Lipscomb. The Deep End with Aaron Lipscomb. The Deep End Podcast with Aaron Lipscomb. Welcome to the Deep End with Aaron Lipscomb. Who wants to see my dick? Kung Fu Kenny with another world premiere. Ain't nobody praying for me. Welcome to the Deep End, bitch. Tommy, your sailor's lip like your dick. Look out, lady. There's a fat whale on your boat. You just stepped into the deep end, bitch. Welcome to the Deep End with your host, Aaron Lipscomb. All up in your ear pussies, bitch.